Amen. Well, this is the final of kind of the poetry section that we've been in for a long time. Job is kind of poetic. Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the fifth and final book of poetry is this book, Song of Solomon, or some Bibles call it Song of Songs, and we'll see why that is here in a little bit. But this is probably one of the most interesting books in the entire Bible because of what it kind of covers and then also what it pictures. But it's pretty obvious. You don't have to get very deep into it. Actually, pretty much just into verse number 2, and you realize that this is a love song. And it's not just like a song, it's more like a musical. And I'm generally not a big fan of musicals, but this one's okay. You'll see there's different parts. So it's this kind of poem, this song that's written by Solomon, we'll see here, for his sweetheart, his honey, and there's different voices, there's different parts to this kind of play, this musical, if you will, that kind of goes throughout this love story. And like we mentioned, it's a book written by Solomon. We'll see there in verse 1, and it's written to his honey, his sweetheart. She's referred to, your Bible probably has kind of like titles that break up some of the verses. Like right above verse 2, it probably says like the Shulamite. So the woman is a Shulamite woman. So she's the sweetheart. She's the one that Solomon fancies, and he likes her and she likes him. And then there's the daughters of Jerusalem, and then there's the beloved, that would be Solomon himself. So there's these different characters that we'll see with these different voices throughout kind of this play that unfolds here in the book of Song of Solomon. The Bible in general is like this. This book is particularly like this, and that is that there's layers. I've infamously have this quote that the Bible is like ogres, and ogres are like onions, and onions have layers. There's layers. And the first layer of this book of Song of Solomon is nothing but a love story between Solomon and his sweetheart. And first you're thinking, which one? Because you do know he had, like we've studied, 700 wives and all of these girlfriends as well. So this must be his favorite one. That's what Song of Solomon is about, this Shulamite woman. It's the one he really loved. Probably written early on in his life, and we'll see later on in another week why that's probably the case. This was written early in Solomon's life. So there's this book of love story between Solomon and his sweetheart. That's kind of the first layer. And then many people view the Song of Solomon as almost like an intimacy manual in the Bible, because there's a lot of that talked about, and it's like if you need something to base your biblical relationship off of when it comes to intimacy, it might as well be a book in the Bible, and this one's full of it. So it's not necessarily a bad way to apply some of these verses, but you also need to be aware of the fact that we are dealing with people in a very different culture, so we want to be careful with taking this stuff, with taking all of these things directly into maybe our context, even like we'll see tonight as he's rizzing her up, Carson. He says, "You look like my horse." That probably doesn't go too well in this culture, but back then it was quite a thing to be said about you. So we gotta just remember, there's some cultural things going on there. But you can learn a lot about intimacy from this book. So that's kind of one layer. But then when you get into maybe more of the picturesqueness of it, you could maybe see it as God's relationship with Israel. I think that's kind of a fair interpretation. As you see this kind of drama unfold in this love story, you could apply it also to God's relationship with the church. You could almost take a broader statement, which is what I almost went towards when I was studying this, and I was just going to say, it's kind of God's relationship with his people, regardless if it's Israel or the church. That's kind of a safe, big, broad umbrella stroke of what this book is about. But after looking into it a little deeper, to me, the best way to kind of view this and interpret it, and the main way we'll be studying it over the next couple of weeks, is it's God's relationship with me. It's personal. And as we read this, if you can think about this as we get into the layers of it and the imagery of it, this is a love story of not Jesus and his people or Jesus and the church, although that's true, It's a love story about Jesus and me. I think you'll gain a lot of insight out of this book. You know, Jesus, he wants a relationship with us. As his people, he wants us to know him more. He wants us to understand his love more. In Ephesians chapter 3, verses 17 through, 19, I think. Ephesians 3, verse 17. Let's start in verse 16. No, let's do verse 17. Ephesians 3, verse 17 says that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that you may be rooted and grounded in love, and that you may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the width, the length, the depth, and the height. That being all of that multidirectionalness of his love. Paul's desires that we as believers would understand the multidirectional love of God. And as we study this book, I think we'll be able to have some better insight maybe in our relationship with Jesus and the intimacy really that we get to experience with him. So verse 1 starts out this way, the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. The Song of Songs, like the Song of Songs, like the greatest hit. It's like the song of all the songs. That's what this is titled. It was written by Solomon. And verse 2 goes on to say, the title there is the Shulamite woman. She's going to speak first in verses 2 through 4. She says, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. Because of the fragrance of your good ointment, your name is ointment poured forth. Therefore the virgins love you. Draw me away." She starts out, she's pretty straightforward on her intentions with Solomon as she's pursuing him. She says, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth." There's a beauty to not beating around the bush. We can glean from that. In relationship, something that can be hard when you're trying to kind of feel out if someone likes you or if they like you. This kind of makes a statement. If they just say, "Kiss me with the kisses of your mouth," I think they like you, right? They're not just kind of wanting to be friends. So she's very forthcoming, and she says, "Hey, give me a smooch here, Solomon, because," verse 2 says, "your love is better than wine." She has this yearning, she has this desire, she has this hunger for this love that she has with Solomon because she realizes that his love is better than, she throws wine in there, something that was nice for them back then. But the reality of what she's saying is your love is better than anything. Solomon, give me a big old kiss because, man, your love for me, it's just better than anything else. So there's the intimacy level. As you peel back a level with our relationship, my relationship with Jesus, I can say this statement that his love is better than wine, or his love for me is better than anything. The love that Jesus has for us as his people, it's better than it all. It's better than anything that we can get from this world. It reminds me of what Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 14, when he says it's the love of Christ that compels us or that constrains us. The thing that motivates us is Jesus' love for us. And in this love story between Solomon and his sweetheart, we take it a level deeper, and we see a love story between us and Jesus, and we see that his love is better. It's better than anything this world has to offer, because, verse 3, of the fragrance of your good ointments, your name is ointment poured forth, the perfume, or therefore the virgins love you. Your fragrance, she says, it's like good ointment, or you smell good, buddy. I want you to kiss me. Why? Because you smell good. Are you taking notes here, Carson? If you want kisses, you got to smell good. And you think you wouldn't have to say this, but some people do need to hear this. You got to smell good. And it's true back then, it's true today. And she's fond of the way he smells. And love will do this to you. Love makes you get silly in all sort of ways. but she's just like, even just the way he smells, she says, it does something to me. It's comforting to me. It's attractive for me. And she describes his ointment as being, or his name as being ointment that's poured out. Just this pouring out of this fragrance is how she thinks of his name. Whenever his name pops into her head, Solomon, it's just like this good smelling cologne that's just poured out. It's like, oh yeah, just this enjoyable type of a thing. And we understand that the Bible talks a little bit about sweet smelling aromas. Back in Genesis chapter 8, verse 21, after Noah gets done with his boat ride, he makes a sacrifice in Genesis chapter 8, verse 21. And it says that as this aroma of the sacrifice goes up, it says that it's a sweet smelling aroma to the Lord. That the sacrifice that Noah makes, that it smells good to Jesus. And then in the New Testament, when we get to 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 15 and 16, Paul tells us this about our kind of fragrance as it relates to Jesus. 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 15 and 16, he says, "For we are to God the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. To the one, we are the aroma of death leading to death, and to the other, the aroma of life leading to life. And who is sufficient for these things?" We are the aroma, we are the fragrance of Christ. And here in Song of Solomon, the bride-to-be, they get married in chapter 4, so they're just getting introduced to each other here. But the bride-to-be, she's just attracted by his aroma. And, Jesus just smells good. I know that sounds weird, but that's just what it is. And I haven't actually physically smelled Jesus, but in the same way that you just smell this pleasing thing and it just like feels like home or something, the aroma of Jesus, it's just good. It's just attractive, we could say. Having been on the other side of the world just a few days ago, other cultures have other standards of aroma. If you've ever been to Europe, you know what I'm talking about. Turkey is in Europe, and I was in Istanbul, and it's like, you just walk by some people, and it's like, yeah, that's not real pleasant. That's not an aroma you want. With Jesus, we have him that's satisfying, that smells good. But like Paul says, in our relationship with Jesus, we actually take on the aroma of Christ, where we actually smell like life to some people. Other Christians smell us, and they go, that's the smell of life. And unbelievers smell us, and they go, that's the smell of death. It actually repels them, the smell of Jesus on us. I try to be somewhat self-aware of what I smell like. Sometimes I fail, but this is kind of a big deal to me for the most part. So much so that when I left for my trip, the first night I wanted to sleep in my car. And I got this great mattress that's super comfortable, and it worked out good. But the problem to sleeping in your car instead of sleeping in a hotel is that you don't have anywhere to shower. And it's like, even if you're not seeing people I just prefer to smell better. And, just a day of traveling, you're going to stink. So I was thinking, how could I shower? And I realized that one time when I was at a Love's gas station, I could hear them say over the intercom, shower number, whatever is ready. So I did some research, and it's like, sure enough, you can buy showers at truck stops. I mean, anyone can. You don't even have to be a trucker. So I went to the Love's gas station in Missoula, and I bought a shower. It was only $17, which sounds like a lot, but if you compare it to a hotel room, it's very cheap. So, and it was clean, and I actually highly would recommend that. So I wanted my aroma, my fragrance to be well, so I took a shower. And here, she is just fond of the aroma of her sweetheart, and we have the aroma, the fragrance of Christ. Watch her desire in verse 4. She says to him, "Draw me away," or take me away. Take me to where you are. Draw me away. And this is our heart towards Jesus. Man, Jesus, draw us away to where you're at. Lord, come and get us, Lord, as your people. Lord, we're here, we're desiring you, we want intimacy with you as your people. We know you're coming back one day. We'll see that even more this Sunday morning in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. But Jesus, come for us, draw us away as your people. This is our same desire that we have for Jesus that this lady has for Solomon. Verse 4 goes on to say, the daughters of Jerusalem say, we will run after you. Here's the Shulamite woman with her desire, man, draw me away to be with you, Solomon. And then these new characters pipe up in the musical, and they say, man, if you go after him, if he draws you away, they say, we're going to run after you. Or as you get drawn away by your groom, as you get closer to him, we're going to follow you closer to him. And this is how it works. As we follow Jesus, it affects people around us. And they see us get closer to him, and they go, man, we're going to run after you. We want to be closer as well. And then again, now the lady, the honey, the sweetheart, she pipes up, the Shulamite. It says this, the king has brought me into his chambers. Her prayer, beginning of verse 4, draw me away. Middle of verse 4, the king has brought me into his chambers, or her prayer has been answered. I want to be close to you. And he comes and he brings her, he carries her away close to him, just like her desire was. And man, one day our desire will be met as well. As we're yearning to be brought, to be carried away to where Jesus is, he's going to do that. He's going to bring us away as his church into the chambers of heaven one day. Then the daughters of Jerusalem, they pipe up, they go, we will be glad and rejoice in you. We will remember your love more than wine. And the Shulamite, she says, rightly do they love you. I love you, but they also love you. They're also enjoying your presence. Verse 5, she goes on to describe herself, kind of her state. She says, I'm dark but lovely, a daughter of Jerusalem like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. Do not look upon me because I'm dark, because the sun has tanned me. My mother's sons were angry with me, and they made me the keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyards I have not kept. As this Shulamite woman describes herself, she goes, I'm dark. Verse 6 describes what she's talking about. She says, I'm tan. She's been having to work out in the field because her brothers had made her, she says. So she hasn't been inside. So she's all tanned up. Now, generally speaking in our culture, we find tan skin to be attractive. Back then, it wasn't attractive at all. That meant you were a worker. That meant you were outside. The paler you were, the more lighter you were, you must be pretty nice because you can just hang out inside all day. So she sees her dark-skinned, her tanness as being unattractive, that she says to Solomon, she goes, man, don't look at me. I'm dark because I've been outside working and my skin is all tanned up, she says, because my brothers are jerks and they're making me keep care of my mother's vineyard and my own vineyard's been neglected. Verse 7, it says, tell me, O you whom I love, where you feed your flock, where you make it rest at noon. For why should I be as one who veils herself by the flocks of your companions? She asks, the Shulamite to her beloved, to Solomon, let me know where you're keeping your sheep. We know that Solomon was a king, and we'll even see that mentioned again in this chapter, but he was also like his dad, a shepherd. And this really helps out with the imagery, because Jesus is both king and shepherd as well. So she's thinking about him as a shepherd here, and she goes, I want you to tell me where you're keeping your flocks. And watch as this develops. I really like this, verse 8. He responds and he says, if you do not know, meaning if you don't know where my sheep are, if you don't know where I'm hanging out, here's what he says. If you do not know, O fairest among women, follow in the footsteps of the flock and feed your little goats besides the shepherd's tents. He essentially tells her, if you don't know where I'm at, here's how you can find me. Follow the footsteps of the flock. I like that. You ever misplace Jesus? If you're ever not sure where to find him, follow the footsteps of the flock, of his people, of the church, because where else would the shepherd be than in the midst of his sheep? It reminds me of what Jesus says in Revelation chapter 1, verse 20. He declares about these lampstands that are mentioned previously in Revelation chapter 1. He says in verse 20, the mystery of the 7 stars which you saw in my right hand and the 7 golden lampstands. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands which you saw are the 7 churches. And Jesus is seen in Revelation chapter 1 in the midst of the lampstands, or in the midst of the 7 churches. Jesus is seen amongst his church. And here, Solomon is saying, and we're symbolically applying it to us and Jesus, that Jesus is found by following the footsteps of his flock, or Jesus hangs out with his people. You know, sometimes people say this, and I trust me, I understand what they mean, but they're wrong. They say, I love Jesus, but I can't stand his people. That's a problem, because Jesus hangs out with his sheep. He hangs out with his flock. And you are actually, and this doesn't apply to you because you're here, but maybe someone watching online or listening later on, you are actually not able to experience all the benefits of knowing the shepherd when you only have a relationship with him outside of his flock, outside of coming together as church. But it's dramatic, yes it is. But some of them stink, yes they do. But some of them are mean, yes they are. But you're missing out on a full benefit of knowing the shepherd if you do not know him amongst other sheep. Paul talks about the importance of church and how all of us have different kind of giftings. We see in, 1 Corinthians chapters 12, 13, and 14, Paul talk about how the manifestations of the Spirit get to work amongst God's people when they're brought together. Before I flew out, so I flew out to the Republic of Georgia last Monday. Last Sunday night, not the last Sunday night, but the first Sunday night, so 2 Sundays ago, I was up in Yucca Valley and they at Joshua Springs Calvary Chapel, and they do a Sunday night service. So I'm there, and that service, they usually teach for about 30, 40 minutes, but then they do quite a bit of worship. So I'm there, and all the Bible college kids are there as well as other people, and I'm just praying, and I'm so glad I did this. I prayed, and I said, Jesus, if you would want to use me tonight, Lord, to give a word to someone here, Lord, I'm open to that. And I pulled out my Habakkuk book, my little black book that I write prayers in, and I wrote down prayer. Jesus, speak a word to me for someone in this room tonight during worship. And we started worshiping, and the message went, and there was some more worship, and they were doing little small prayer groups. We were praying for one another. And then we go over, and this one kid starts to pray, and as he's praying for me, all of a sudden, just like this, I just know, you need to go, and it was actually Brock, who the word was for, not who was praying for me. I just got this word from the Lord, and he's like, you need to go and tell Brock that I say yes. I'm like, huh. Now, we're teaching 2 Corinthians when I get to Georgia, and part of the verses I get to teach are all the promises of God in Christ Jesus are yes, and in him are amen. And the Lord gives me that verse, and he says, you just need to go and you need to tell Brock that whatever he's praying about right now in his life, that the answer is yes. So this kid gets done praying for me. Brock's in the back, and I go over, and I said, I never do this, dude, I promise, but I'm convinced that this is from Jesus, and I just want to tell you this. And I gave him the story, and he said, okay. And 2 days later, he texts me. He goes, I just want you to know that word that you gave me, he says, it was true. It came to pass. I was just like, whoa. Hagen, why did you tell us that? Because Jesus is where? Amongst his sheep, amongst his people. And that's the only place where that kind of stuff can happen. It's when sheep get together. It's when we get together and we worship Jesus. We do not want to neglect the assembling together of the saints, as is the manner of some. Verse 10 goes on to say, your cheeks, they're lovely with ornaments, your neck with chains of gold. You just got these nice, cheeks. You got these nice jewelry, this nice chain going on. The daughters of Jerusalem chime in, verse 11, we will make your ornaments of gold with studs of silver. The Shulamite woman says, verse 12, while the king is at his table, my spikenard sends forth its fragrance. While the king is sitting there at his table, my spikenard is sending forth its fragrance. Or my smell good stuff is filling up the room, she says, as the king is sitting at his table. Now, that literally the phrase spikenard, it's the same idea that's used in John chapter 12, verse number 3. If you remember when Jesus is anointed at Bethany by Mary of Bethany, she takes the very costly oil of spikenard and she anoints Jesus. And part of me wonders if I would assume as a Jewish woman, she's familiar with this verse. And I wonder if this verse was in her head as she saw her King Jesus sitting at a table, in her house, and she takes her own spikenard and she anoints him with it. Verse 13, a bundle of myrrh is my beloved to me, that lies all night between my breasts, she says. Just a bundle of myrrh, this more smell good stuff. It's just there with me all night long, she says. My beloved is to me a cluster of henna blooms in the vineyard of En-gedi. And then Solomon, the beloved, says this, verse 15, behold, you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. You have dove's eyes. Solomon responds to all this, and he says, behold, you are fair, my love. That word fair is literally like beautiful. Solomon declares her beauty to her. Now contrast that back with verse 6. How did she see herself? Verse 6, she said to him, don't look upon me because I'm dark. He says, you're beautiful. We are. There's two realities here. We are dark with sin. And yet Jesus declares to us, you're beautiful, my love. You have her kind of self-evaluation of herself. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve this. And you have his declaration of her, which is, you're beautiful, tan-skinned and all, he says. And again, that's kind of very picturesque of our relationship with Jesus. Lord, I'm nothing. I got nothing to offer. I'm whatever. And he goes, no, you're mine. I see the beauty in you. Verse 15, behold, you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. You have dove's eyes. You have those birdie little eyes, he says. Beautiful is the idea. Verse 16, behold, you are handsome, my beloved, she says. Yes, pleasant. Also, our bed is green. The beams of our house are cedar, and our rafters are fir. Start to describe where they're going to live one day. And she says, it's nice. The beams of our house, they're cedar. The rafters are fir. She says, our dwelling place is nice. And truly we believe that what's awaiting for us one day when our King and Shepherd, Jesus, fulfills our desire, our prayer, which is also his, which is to draw us away, that when he does, that we will realize that, man, our dwelling place, it's nice. I mean, when we get to heaven, we're just going to be like, wow, Jesus, this is nice. He's like, yeah, what else would I do for my bride? He goes, this is for you. So she's just kind of reminiscing, declaring how nice of the place that she gets to live with her king/shepherd. What I like about Song of Solomon, we'll get into this more in the weeks to come, is that our relationship with Jesus, it's supposed to be passionate. And this book, it is a book about passionate love between a man and a woman. But hopefully as we continue to study it, we're going to see it represents our relationship with Jesus, like we've seen here even in chapter 1. And our relationship with Jesus is supposed to be passionate. And sometimes you forget about that. And sometimes if you've been walking with Jesus for a while, just like in an earthly relationship, it can grow old and stale. And hopefully through this study of the book of Song of Solomon, it'll breathe fresh life into our relationship with Jesus and be like, man, this should be a passionate love because that's what he has for me and that's what I want to have for him. Capiche? Not too many awkward verses in chapter 1. There's plenty more to come. We'll probably average around 2 to 3 chapters a night. It won't take us too long to get through this book, but you can read ahead. Next week we'll do at least 2. But we're going to end the live stream here.